It is a pleasure, on behalf of the Jefferson administration, staff, and senior class, to welcome all the parents, relatives, and friends to Jefferson High School's 14th commencement exercise. Tonight is a very special night for a great many people. We have all experienced events or days which will remain in our memories forever. Tonight is certainly one of those events for these 605 graduating seniors. I would like to introduce several people who are involved in the commencement tonight. First of all, two school board members, Mr. Ed Johnson and Mr. Gordon Griller. Also, the superintendent for the Bloomington schools, Ms. Leila Anderson. The Jefferson High School principal, Dr. Robert Smith. Assistant principal, Mr. Irvin Deering. And representing the Jefferson faculty at the request of this senior class, Dr. Lewis Cohen. Many people have been involved in the educational lives of these graduating seniors over the past 12 years. However, because many of the parents tonight will also end their career at Jefferson, I want to use this opportunity to emphasize the important contribution you as parents have provided for your sons and daughters. We all realize the absolute need for the home and the school to work harmoniously together as partners if educational objectives are going to be met. Therefore, I want to extend, in addition to a welcome, a sincere thank you to all the parents in attendance here tonight. Because of your demonstrated involvement and support of our school programs over the years, I am confident your sons and daughters have received an outstanding education that will serve as a strong foundation for their future goals. So welcome, and more importantly, thank you. It now gives me great pleasure to introduce Dr. Lewis Cohen, who represents the best of a truly outstanding faculty. Dr. Cohen.
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. Graduates, parents, faculty, superintendent, board members. I'm not going to have a talk tonight that tells you about hell and brimstone, the economic worries of the world. I'm going to let you go out and find out like I did. Find out for yourself. What I'd like to do is talk on a lighter theme. I've always worried a lot, and frankly, I'm good at it. I worry about introducing people and going blank when I get to my wife. I worry about a shortage of ball bearings, a snake coming up through our kitchen drain. I worry about the world ending at midnight and getting stuck with 3 hours on a 24-hour cold capsule. I worry about my wife getting into the Guinness World Book of Records under pregnancy, oldest recorded birth. I promised the superintendent I would keep it clean, but she can't really hear me. You can't hear back there, so where are you? You know, I worry what the dog thinks when he sees me coming out of the shower. But mostly, this doesn't get any better either. But mostly, Lori, see, there is another side to me. But mostly I worry about surviving, keeping up with the times in a world that changes daily. knowing what to keep and what to discard, what to accept and what to protest. Children are becoming an endangered species. Energy has reached crisis proportions. Marriages are on the decline. And the only ones having any fun anymore are the research rats. You cannot help but envy their decadence. Throughout the years, these furry swingers have been plied with booze, pot, cigarettes, birth control pills, too much sun, cyclamates, caffeine, red dye number 2, saccharin, disco music at earshot decibels, late nights, and a steady diet of snack food. If people haven't asked themselves these questions, they should. How come there are still more rats than people? How come you've never seen an iron-starved, dull, listless rat drag around the house? Did you ever see a rat with a salad in one hand and a calorie counter in the other? Have you ever seen a fat rat? These unanswered questions have bothered me because every time I turn around, a new research study has taken away something that has added pleasure in the past, but is bound to make me sick in the future. There's a gal up there I'd love to keep, and I'd have a program. I heard a story about a research rat recently that makes one pause and reflect. The rat's name was Jerome. Jerry, that's the only way I could get you in this speech. He was a pro. He had everything tested on him, from artificial sweeteners to bred preservatives, to foot fungus viruses, to brutal subway experiments, and survived them all. A researcher figured he was something of a super rat, an immortal who could sustain life no matter what the odds. The researcher took him home as a pet for his children. Within 3 months, this indestructible rat was dead. It seems that one day the rat was taken for a ride in the car with a teenage son who had a learner's permit. The rat died of a heart attack. That's what this talk is all about, surviving. When our children were small, we thought they were brilliant. Now they're teenagers and they think we're retarded. To have children in their teens is to know that you are living, just as having a headache is proof that you have a head. What disturbs today's kids most is the unwillingness of their parents to accept the benefit of their youthful experience. And the parents wonder why the problems that plague their kids now didn't hit them when they were 18 and knew all the answers. We parents are victims of prevailing ideologies at a given time. The contemporary parent was a child when everything was a kid's fault, and is now a parent when everything is a parent's fault. By the time your son is old enough not to be ashamed of you, his own son is already ashamed of him. Youth is a time of rapid change. Between the ages of 12 and 17, a parent can age 30 years. You can give your teenage son your car for his date. You can give him a bonus allowance for his date. You can give him your brand new sport jacket for his date. But you cannot tell him to have a good time. He'll probably glare at you and say, "Don't tell me what to do." And my daughter, now that she's grown up to the point where we can live with her, she decides to move out. Teenagers seem to get homesick only when they're at home. I think that's true. It's tough on our teenagers. They get their parents at such a late or an advanced age that they find it hard to retrain us. Oh, how lucky are the mothers and fathers who have no children. There are, however, few emotional obstacles between grandparents and grandchildren. Any kid can get along with their grandmother. It's her daughter who gives them trouble. becoming a grandparent is not only the last word in painless childbirth, it is the nativity of a child prodigy in your own image. I can't understand how that nincompoop who married my daughter could become the father of one of the most brilliant children in the whole world. When my granddaughter was 4, she could recite the whole Gettysburg Address. Abraham Lincoln couldn't do it until he was 54. The simplest toy, one which even the youngest child can operate, is called a grandparent. I told my parents, whenever they asked me what was going to become of me, which is about once a day, that when I grew up I'd be a philanthropist. I wasn't sure just what it was, but I explained to my parents that according to the newspapers, they were invariably millionaires. My parents hoped that no matter what else, I would be a wise man. Wisdom was the greatest glory, my parents felt. Besides, wisdom was steadier than millionairedom. Besides that, if you're wise and somehow lost your millions, you still wouldn't lose your mind. I proceeded to bone up on the subject of wisdom and learned that according to the wisest of the wise, wisdom is a virtually unpossessable possession. It diminishes as it increases. The more of it you acquire, the closer you come to the knowledge that you are not wise at all. Knowing that you don't know is top-flight wisdom. Knowing that you are a fool is sheer genius. Admitting it is saintliness. Many wise words are spoken in jest, but they don't compare with the number of stupid words spoken in earnest. It's so simple to be wise. Just think of something stupid to say, then say the opposite. In closing, I would like to direct a few comments to the graduates. I do feel honored to speak before you, to be chosen. Brendan said I was number 20. That's not bad. There are 100 on the faculty, you know. Okay, first of all, wiseness and age go together. No young man qualifies as a sage, even though he strokes his beard while he ponders. A goat also has a beard, but that doesn't make him a rabbi. You must learn from the mistakes of others. You can't possibly live long enough to make them all yourself. You're only young once. After that, it takes other excuses for behaving like an idiot. At 20, we don't care what the world thinks of us. At 30, we worry about what it thinks of us. At 60, my age, we discover that it wasn't even thinking of us. Thank you.
Good grief. Here it is, graduation night, and it's just like being in another class. People sitting in rows, alphabetical seating, teachers, staff, and administrators. The difference, though, tonight is this is not a 10th grade English or a 12th grade humanities class. This is a special night. This is our commencement. Yesterday is gone. Its lessons are learned or unlearned. Assignments are finished or unfinished. We had good times, we had bad times. Whether you got here by way of the honor roll or the detention room, the resource center or the pit, it makes no difference now. Tonight is a new beginning. Tonight, we begin a new role. The past 12 years have been safe. We have listened, learned, and watched, accepted, and rejected. But tonight we begin a new role. Our new role is not to watch, but to do. Not to cheer, but to be involved. Not to read about success, but to cause it. Tonight is the beginning of new responsibilities. Think back to the classroom. Remember your teacher's desk? What do we see? Grade books, assignments, attendance slips, detention slips, nurses' passes, midterm reports, and worksheets. Teachers were always looking out for us, always making sure we were where we were supposed to be. We even had a computer that would call home and let Mom know when we were absent. Tonight, we accept new responsibilities. Decision-making, finances, career planning, relationships, marriage proposals. Yes, some of us will take on the responsibility of a husband or wife and children. Tonight is the beginning of new responsibility. Tonight is the beginning of a new phase in our education. Until now, we have learned our 3 R's: reading, writing, and arithmetic. What we have learned will give us a firm basis. We must realize that what we have learned is not an end, but a beginning. We must also realize that our education is something that can never be taken away. We must use it, protect it, and extend it. For some of us, this will mean attending a college. For others, starting in the job market, on-the-job training, or the military. No matter what path we choose, we will all learn from the hardest school of all, experience. Tonight, we begin a new phase in our education. When we cross this stage tonight, it will be symbolic of our new beginning. When we cross this stage, it won't be anything instant or magical, like Superman or Underdog changing in phone booths. It won't happen in a flash or by spinning in circles like Wonder Woman did. Rather, our trip across this stage will be a gradual change, like a butterfly emerging from a cocoon. Like a butterfly drying its wings in the sun, getting ready to use its wings, it's time for us to try ours. Our destiny is in our hands right now. It is time to adopt a new role, assume added responsibilities, and begin a new phase in our education. It is time to begin, try our wings. It is time to commence.
Good morning, Jaguars. Today is lunch. Finally, no more morning announcements. Yes, finally, we have come to the end of 12 long years of education. For some of us, it has seemed to take an eternity. But this is not an end. This is just the beginning of a life of many challenges. Before we celebrate this great occasion, let's consider two very important challenges that we must meet in the future. The first challenge is to accept the responsibilities of democracy and not just its privileges. Here at Jefferson, we have learned that democracy is based on a well-informed public that can make clear and logical decisions. This creates a government that is of and by the people. We know this, and yet when the news comes on, we change the channel to Three's Company. We know this, and yet only half of America voted at our last presidential election. We know this. And yet the discussion of current events and politics is a social taboo. If you don't think so, try bringing up the Persian Gulf at tonight's senior class party. What will it take to get us involved in what's important? Will it take a world of hunger where millions of people die of starvation? That world exists today. Will it take a nuclear arms race that threatens our very existence? That threat exists today. Will it take the oppression of innocent people by corrupt governments? That oppression exists today. Obviously, these are not enough to make us interested in what is important, because they happen today. Today, when we're worried about things like who will win the next ball game. Today, when we're quick to set aside the newspaper and pick up a gossip magazine or turn on the tube. I know, I do it too. Maybe a national crisis will wake us up to the world around us. Maybe a national crisis will make us care. I hope we can foresee such a crisis and take on the responsibilities of democracy now, before it's too late. Some people call us the generation that does not care. Let us not forget. Adolf Hitler once said, "What luck for the rulers that men do not think." The second challenge is to serve our fellow man. Let's face it, we've got a lot going for us. We've got a roof over our heads, food, good education, stereos, double-car garages, computers, many other things that make life a lot easier. We have earned many of these things, but some of it is good fortune. Good fortune, like being born to the right parents, at the right place, and at the right time. Because we are so fortunate, we have an obligation to those who are less fortunate. We can meet this obligation through service organizations and changing to a better attitude of helping one another. This could create a society of equal opportunity, a society where people are rewarded for what they earn. That is what democracy is all about. With these two challenges met, we can have an informed people in a land of equal opportunity. Wouldn't that make a great nation? We can become the generation that cares. We can make a difference.
I would like to start by thanking some people who have given me support and help in the last 4 years. I would like to give a special thanks to my parents and family, because if it wasn't for their love and confidence in me, I don't know if I would be here with you tonight. I could count on my family to help me with my homework, friends, problems with teachers, anything. They would drive me to football, hockey, or basketball games on nights when I really would rather stay home. For this and much more, I thank them. In the last 4 years, I met so many people. Some I just got to know by name, but some I really got to know well. I don't think I could ever thank you guys enough. You really made me feel like I belonged. You asked me to come to your games, to your concerts, and to your plays. You asked me to come and watch you. It really made me feel honored. The teachers in Bloomington are great. They made me feel like I was part of the class. They didn't just put me in a corner and say, here's the work, do it. They took time to explain the work if I needed it. I always felt like I had a personal relationship with them. I think that's important. To me, Jefferson just isn't another school. Jefferson helped me gain confidence. Confidence I really didn't have before, and which I needed just like anybody else. The confidence to make friends, to go and do things on my own or with my friends. The confidence to be a normal kid. I will look back on my days at Jefferson as being the starting point to my self-confidence. Next fall, I will learn to become more self-reliant at Courage Center. The following year, I hope to study special education at Narwhaldale College. When I become a teacher, I will always remember the love and confidence of my family and the friendship and support I experienced at Jefferson. Thank you and good luck.
Tonight, we not only are gathered here to look to the future and what challenges lie ahead, but also to look at the past, to remember our friends and classmates who helped us in the previous 4 years, to remember also our family, teachers, and community who shared in our defeats and our triumphs, our difficulties and our joys. But most importantly, as we pause these few minutes, to bow our heads and thank, in your own personal way, the motivating force that brought us here tonight as a graduating class of 1984.
Graduates, parents, faculty, guests, and friends, The faculty and I wish to take this opportunity to congratulate the class of 1984 on their accomplishments. These students have achieved a great deal for themselves, as well as carrying on an extremely rich school tradition in both extracurricular and academic pursuits. At the risk of leaving out some accomplishments, let me emphasize what a great year this has been under the leadership of the class of 1984. Hundreds of students have received star ratings in the state music contest. 2 students will be competing at the national level in the area of forensics. Several students in office education and distributive education will be competing nationally. 19 students were recognized at the area vocational technical school for outstanding achievement. Athletic teams entered 7 entries into state tournaments this year. 2 of those teams were second place, and 2 of those teams won state championships. In addition, a great number of individuals competed in state tournaments and did very well. 4 teams were regional second place winners and/or conference champions in addition to the state tournament entries. A mock trial team won honors at the state level and also competed very well in their state competition. 1 out of every 10 members of this class was awarded 1 or more of nearly 90 scholarships. 9 students were national merit finalists. In a school and class with such rich tradition and determined competition, it is truly difficult to gain a top position in the class. I would like to name 10 students who ranked at the top of the class. 2 I'd like to make a very brief award to. In alphabetical order, they are Linda Lang, Peter Lee, Ann Sable, Cheryl Snyder, Dale Shidla, Jennifer Wolter, Susan Wolters, Peter Yu. It takes an extreme amount of drive and a great deal of hard work to finish number 1 and number 2 in a class like this at Jefferson. I'd like at this time to call forward 2 students, Lori Anton, the salutatorian of the class, and Brendan Randall, the valedictorian, for an award. We have had the pleasure of the company of 4 exchange students here at Jefferson this past year, and I'd like them to stand as I give you their names and the countries from which they come. First, Dolores Gonzalez Posadas Gomez from Spain. Ingrid Sarah Grimstad from Norway. Hannes P. Leibel of Sweden. Pirkko Anneli Talvinsari from Finland. Let me personally send along with you the best wishes of the administration and staff and students as you return at the end of this very fine year here at Jefferson. We've enjoyed your company. Thank you. And now the members of the class of 1984 who have met the requirements for graduation established by the state of Minnesota, the Board of Education in Bloomington, and the faculty of Thomas Jefferson High School may now come forward and receive their diplomas.
Dawn Marie Adams.
Nathan William Adams.
Laureen Dawn Adamson.
Thomas John Atkins.
Stephen Ainsworth.
Anne Marie Albertson.
Bryce L. Alexander.
Laura K. Alexander.
Karen Jean Amell.
Catherine Irene Anderson.
Heidi J. Anderson.
Holly Joe Anderson.
Jacqueline Ann Anderson.
Jennifer Jean Anderson.
Julie Lynn Anderson.
Mark D. Anderson.
Martin Theodore Anderson.
Sandra J. Anderson.
Scott M. Anderson.
Stacy Joe Anderson.
Susan Mary Anderson.
Kimberly Beth Andre.
Lori Lou Antone.
Dale Dwayne App.
Lori Ann Appleton.
Scott William Arndt.
Rick Paul Arnett.
Shelley K. Arthen.
Neil Bernard Atkinson Jr.
Tracy Marie Bacall.
Craig Philip Bader.
Mark Allen Bakken.
Stephanie John Baldwin.
Kevin J. Bollett.
Daniel A. Balstead.
James Dean Bangasser.
Greg Thomas Bartholomew.
Lisa Charlene Bastier.
Laura D. Bauman.
John Baumer.
Susan Marie Baumgartner.
Susan Ruth Bielman.
Eric Timothy Benkin.
Kurt M. Belker.
Nancy J. Benedict.
Darcine J. Bingston.
Melissa Ann Bennett.
Amy Jo Benoken.
Kevin A. Berg.
Mary Frances Berg.
Stephen Dale Berger.
John L. Berquist.
Michelle Marie Burks.
Amy Jo Betzold.
Daniel V. Bianchi.
Donald J. Bittner.
Craig Ronald Biukney.
Troy Allen Bjork.
John Peter Blake.
Eric John Blanchard.
Thomas C. Blagan.
Charisse Marie Blexrud.
Ria Kayun Blado.
Renee M. Bloom.
Mary Jo Bodger.
Stephanie Jo Bond.
Renee Marie Bontrager.
Wendy Michelle Borseth.
Reed L. Bowman.
Linda Jean Branfold.
Craig C. Braun.
Barbara J. Broers.
Matthew Kent Brokel.
Ron Lewis Bronner.
Gary Ray Brown.
Timothy James Brown.
John V. Brugnoli.
Brian David Burke.
Leslie Ann Burbank.
Diana Lynn Butler.
Colleen Mary Burns.
Rodney Ellen Burns.
Daniel J. Byrne.
Deborah Lynn Carlson.
Carrie Marie Carlson.
J. Anthony Carlson.
Jane Michelle Carlson.
Melissa Joy Carucci.
Kristen Lynn Cartwright.
Karen Kathleen Chadwick.
Jacqueline K. Casperson.
Lisa Mary Charlton.
Deborah Lee Chapman.
Alan D. Charlton.
Serena H. Chith.
Julie M. Clark.
Don R. Christensen.
Christine Marie Collins.
Patricia Jean Clemens.
Maureen Margaret Conway.
Kathleen Margaret Conley.
Todd Michael Corcoran.
John Dwayne Cook.
Christopher Wayne Cotner.
James Edward Costello.
Lisa Jeanette Counters.
Kathleen Coughlin.
Stephanie Lynn Kaufer.
Robert Stephen Countryman.
Eric Matthew Crawford.
Bradley Allen Crago.
Colleen Marie Cummings.
Troy Michael Cronin.
Diana Jean Curry.
Christopher Colin Cummins.
Catherine Marie Cushman.
Kevin Patrick Curry.
John Michael Day.
Thomas John Dahlstrom.
Dong Tang.
John M. Davis.
John B. DeGrood.
James Matthew DeGidio.
Jennifer Joanne Deming.
Lynn Christine DeVore.
Debbie Lynn Dyower.
Kimberly Ann Dirksen.
David R. Dieter.
James A. Dershell.
Cheryl Lee Dodds.
Sherry Ann Dione.
Patrick Norman Donovan.
Amy Diana Dom.
Michael A. Dornfeld.
Steve B. Dory.
Leslie Ann Dart.
Robert Christian Doss.
Daniel J. Duffy.
Michael J. Dufert.
Jean Ann Dusick.
Beth Ann Dunley.
Cindy Ray Ebo.
Dennis Hanlon Dusick.
Kenneth Robert Ebright.
Beth Ann Eberbach.
Deborah Susan Eganis.
Catherine Jean Edlin.
Kathleen N. Elrich.
Paul Mark Elin.
Michelle Ann Eller.
Amanda Lee Elg.
William Peter Elmquist.
Scott Richard Elliott.
Daniel Ellen Enger.
Susan Marie Engelhardt.
Patricia Ann Erdman.
John Darwin Engstrand.
Allison Patricia Farnham.
Lisa Erickson.
Timothy Martin Farrell.
Mary Ursula Farrell.
Tammy Marie Feld.
Carla Jean Feist.
Amy Marie Fessler.
Amy Kathleen Fenlon.
Terrence James Filkins.
Elizabeth Ann Fievig.
Douglas J. Fitter.
Kelly Ann Finnegan.
Ronald Leo Fleming.
Sonia Elizabeth Feldy.
Julie N. Flatham.
James G. Flatham.
Patrick L. Fogarty.
Todd R.M. Flom.
David J. Fong Jr.
Kathleen Ann Foley.
Mark Kenneth Foslin.
Greg James Frederick.
Angela Marie Freeman.
John Gregory Freemark.
Julie Ann Freitag.
Susan K. Friesen.
Thomas Robert Furstenberg.
Eric Scott Fuglister.
Stephanie Jean Gaines.
Kelly Jean Gaitan.
Kent James Guycan.
Daryl Paul Galazin.
John D. Galley.
Jerry S. Garati.
Virginia K. Gardner.
Lynn Marie Gary.
Carrie Ruth George.
Peter Bruce Gilfillan.
Mark A. Glad.
Carol Sue Gaynor.
Tony Allen Goldenstein.
Dolores Gonzalez Posada.
Paul Eric Kraftstrom.
Bruce Lawrence Granger.
Tiffany Ann Granger.
Laura Ann Greenshields.
Robert John Griffin.
Susan A. Griffin.
Lisa Renee Grimnitz.
Ingrid Sarah Grimstaff.
Kari Lynn Greninger.
David D. Granholz.
Chris Ray Gross.
Kathy Marie Guggenberger.
Sally Ann Gullickson.
Richard Dale Gustafson.
Lisa Lynn Haas.
Lori Lynn Haig.
Renee A. Hagstrom.
Lorna Ann Haynes.
Michelle Marie Hankey.
Catherine Ann Hanson.
Elizabeth Ann Hanson.
Michael David Hanson.
Natalie Catherine Hanson.
Scott Glenn Hanson.
Terry Lynn Hanson.
Stephanie Lynn Harkins.
Jesse J. Harper.
Lisa Ann Harris.
Linda May Hogue.
Carla J. Havlicek.
Jerome Daniel Hockland.
Jack Michael Heil.
Anna Lee Helms.
Todd Arthur Hendricks.
Helene Elizabeth Herbst.
Douglas Lee Herzog.
Michael L. Hickey.
Linda Sue Hicks.
Karen Colleen Higgins.
Connie Marie Hildestad.
Clifford Henry Hill III.
Peter James Hill.
Ronald Stephen Hill.
Timothy Lee Hilsinger.
Dan S. Hirsch,
Mary Michelle Hooper,
John W. Hopkins,
Deborah Ann Hornig,
David Allen Hoshaw,
Timothy Richard Haas,
Jill Ann Hauk,
Thomas James Howden,
Maureen C. Hoy,
Paul O. Hubacher,
Christopher Vincent Hughes,
Amy Elizabeth Hulsing,
Sheila Corrine Hurd,
Wayne Matthew Hurd,
Carrie Lynn Hutchinson,
James M. Hughes,
Loy H. Wynn,
Julie Ann Aitstrom,
Catherine Lee Inglesby,
Paul Charles Jacobson,
Hugh B. James,
Carol Ann Jarasinski,
Joy Marie Jennings,
Jeffrey J. Jensen,
Andrew Walter Johnson,
Annette Cheryl Johnson,
Barbara L. Johnson,
Chris M. Johnson,
Janice Lane Johnson,
Jeffrey Neal Johnson,
Jeffrey Wayne Johnson,
Jonathan Mark Johnson,
Kathleen Ann Johnson,
Paul R. Johnston,
Bruce Douglas Johnstone,
Debbie Marie Jones,
Demetrius Pierre Jones,
Mark A. Jones,
Raymond Lee Jones,
Joni K. Jorgensen,
Janine L. Julene,
Julie Ann Jung,
Jill Marie Cabot,
Daniel Meade Kahlberg,
Michelle Lynn Lacey,
Michael R. Camrath,
Diane Joy Davis,
Christopher John Kay,
Robert Dennis Casper,
Catherine Ann Kellogg,
Don Marie Keegan,
Heather Joanne Kelly,
Robin M. Kellogg,
William Jerome Kennedy,
Lisa Marie Kennedy,
Kathleen Marie Kissler,
Jennifer Jean King,
Margaret Helen Klimick,
Lisa Kathleen Cleven,
Jeff S. Knutson,
Julie Marie Knapp,
Lawrence M. Colon,
Robert M. Coker,
Marilyn Elizabeth Kramer,
Rick D. Cobo,
James Lyle Crumry,
Mark Stephen Kramer,
Sharon Lynn LaFon,
Allison Marie Cum,
Monica Lee Landstad,
Colleen Renee Lambert,
Leanne Angela Lanzo,
Linda Lee Lang,
Elizabeth Ahmet Larson,
Wendy Lynn Larson,
Julie Ann Larson,
Eric Paul Larson,
Paul Andrew Larson,
Michael Francis Larson,
Timothy P. Laughinghouse,
Timothy Andrew Larson,
Daniel Tahi Lee,
Jean Marie Lowry,
Peter K. Lee,
Jen Wan Lee,
Mitchell Arnold Lepp,
Tony Michelle Lee,
Lene Marie Lewis,
Christopher Neil Liam,
Andrea Marie Lindberg,
Jonas B. LaBelle,
David I. Liu,
Stephen Matthew Linz,
Christopher Richard Lofstuen,
Scott William Ludow,
Sean Kevin Lowry,
Dana Marie Lachlan,
Lori Ann Lundgren,
Shane Michael Lucky,
Sarah Elizabeth McAlpine,
Edward Allen Lundquist,
Peter Christopher McPherson,
Mi Fung Mak,
Lori Ann Maher,
Kent Anthony Matson,
Mary Jo Mastel,
John T. Markson,
Deborah Lee Matson,
Greg Richard Matson,
Michael Scott Matthews,
Sarah Jane Matson,
Robert Scott McAllister,
Douglas Torsten Matson,
Teresa M. McDaniels,
Kimberly Ann McGahee,
Jean Marie McHale,
Darren Robert McClinsky,
Megan Mary McLaughlin.
Janet J. McIntosh.
Martha J. McNally.
Michelle Lynn McClendon.
Thomas Todd Meyer.
Michelle Lynn McClendon.
Anthony Allen Merchant.
Mary Diane Meir.
Holly Noel Miller.
Christine Ruth Mell.
Joe P. Miller.
Curtis John Metza.
Thomas A. Miller.
Jane Marie Miller.
Steve J. Mills.
Shannon D. Miller.
Trevor Allen Miyamoto.
Constance Ann Mills.
Heather Michelle Molenhoff.
Michael Dean Minsas.
Julene K. Moan.
Frank Richard Moe.
Sean Marie Monson.
Stephen Douglas Molinar.
J. Patrick Moran.
Stephen R. Munson.
Brady J. Maroney.
William Darby Mooney.
Shari Joe Mosey.
Heather Lynn Morgan.
Heather Thane Monroe.
Scott E. Morris.
Karen Joy Knapp.
Amy Sue Moso.
Karen Yvonne Neeser.
Michael Murray Musell.
Bruce John Nelson.
Paul Harvey Navratil.
Gregory Earl Nelson.
Paula Marie Nelson.
Julie Ann Nelson.
Christopher Lee Nelson.
Scott William Nelson.
Jeff G. Nelson.
Sarah Lee Ness.
Mark DeVere Nelson.
Lori Dawn Nooner.
Paula Joanne Nelson.
John David Norderhus.
Mark Daniel Neyrud.
Paul Anthony Oalde.
Robert John Nielsen.
Craig A. Olson.
Robert Andrew Nopola.
Christine Anna Olson.
David John Nutt.
Michael P. Olson.
Michael Francis O'Connor.
Stacy Lynn Olson.
Kimberly K. Olson.
Mark Elliott Olson.
Lori Ann Olson.
Susan Marie O'Rose.
Sonia Marie Olson.
Dennis Lee Osterberg.
Stephen B. Olson.
Carol Elaine Packer.
Keith Anthony Opatz.
John Dumont Pastor III.
Thomas J. Orth.
Michael Allen Pedersen.
Deanne M. Pace.
Richard Jerry Pirtle.
Lawrence A. Peretta.
Christopher David Peterson.
Philip J. Pavolka.
Marlo Allen Peterson.
Michelle Catherine Pfeiffer.
Wendy Lee Peterson.
Christine Peterson.
Lucinda R. Fromer.
Desiree Don Peterson.
Cheryl Marie Petrini.
Stacy Marie Peterson.
Bradley Earl Price.
Laura J. Pfeiffer.
Tracy Sue Pyle.
Ruthie Ellen Pearson.
Sandra L. Redons.
Mark Christopher Powell.
Brendan Walter Randall.
David J. Saka.
Michelle K. Rasmussen.
Mark Waldemar Quisted.
Andrew Scott Rechtenwald.
Richard T. Ray.
Julie Christine Redden.
Richard James Ranheim.
Kari Lynn Reard.
Daniel Kent Robertus.
Scott A. Reindell.
Matthew Dodds Rechtenwald.
Beth Allen Renander.
Jacqueline Lee Reginald.
Rodney James Reynolds.
Tony Reich.
John Clinton Rhodes.
Ryan Jason Ryder.
Gary Scott Ringate.
Robert John Rendell.
Ronald M. Roars.
Christina A. Ray.
Aaron Arthur Roloff.
Kristen Angela Ryle.
Lenore Doreen Rurda.
Carolyn Lee Robbins.
Tracy Rosine.
George William Rolandelli.
Jill Elizabeth Royal.
Catherine Amy Roloff.
Dean Mitchell Rudolphi.
Christine Jane Rose.
Dawn Ellen Ridmark.
Michelle J. Rowan.
Christopher Mark Sampson.
Edward Rosinski.
Marceline Ann Marie Schaefer.
Colleen Ann Ryan.
Sharon Michelle Schiffman.
Anne Marie Sable.
Sandra Ann Schlangen.
Mark H. Saxenmeyer.
Paul Matthew Schmitz.
Anthony J. Shear.
Mark Lee Schneiderman.
Mark Richard Schissel.
Lisa R. Schubert.
Patrick John Schmitz.
Michael P. Sewich.
Cheryl Ann Schneider.
Darren Wayne Shelsted.
Jeffrey Dennis Schraft.
Karen Lee Shimoto.
Gavin Paul Seeker.
Kimberly Ann Simmons.
Angela Ray Sharp.
Diane Janelle Skansberg.
Dale John Shidla.
Paul M. Smith.
Wayne A. Sieber.
Timothy Richard Smith.
Todd K. Sostrand.
Carol Joy Snyder.
Charles H. Smith.
Amy Elizabeth Solstead.
Randy A. Smith.
Meta Jean Sorensen.
Daniel McKnight Smythe.
Kent J. Spindler.
Mark C. Sofelt.
Jennifer Lynn Stans.
Dale Ellen Sorensen.
Stephen Scott Steffen.
Mark Robert Stodevere.
Paul Eugene Stewart.
Susan Krista Stanek.
Christine Ann Strander.
Sarah Elizabeth Steffen.
Doreen Renee Stuber.
Mark Donald Stenbeck.
Dean Lynn Swanson.
Jeff D. Stortron.
Patty Ann Swarthout.
Douglas Matthew Strouser.
Kristen Cheryl Switzer.
Anne Cecile Stuvey.
Perko Onelli Talvasseri.
Christy Marie Swanson.
Scott Francis Taylor.
Michael Robert Swenson.
Mary Margaret Tarish.
Tamala K. Sid.
Amy Lynn Thomas.
Dean A. Teraboy.
Gregory Kenneth Thompson.
Stephen Earl Taylor Jr.
Richard Edward Thompson.
Isabel Micheline Thill.
Ross E. Timgren.
Micah John Thomas.
Natalie A. Tracy.
Ken R. Thompson.
Jeffrey Russell Tucker.
Susan Lynn Thompson.
Paula J. Turgeon.
Kelly Marie Townsend.
Perry Michelle Tyler.
Tam T. Tron.
Tracy Lynn Vaness.
Cara L. Tumberg.
Christine Carol Versich.
Evan A. Tweed.
Carrie Jean Vidmar.
Tammy Christine Vaness.
Aaron John Voigt.
Bruce J. Vermilia.
Melody Dawn Vold.
Marilee Vickery.
David R. Wall.
Dan Vitez.
Catherine Jane Wangstad.
Clayton Howard Volk.
Scott James Wanshura.
Nok Tik Tivu.
Jennifer Dawn Weaver.
John David Walker.
Robert L. Weiss.
Tracy Lynn Wanis.
Thomas A. Welsh.
Matthew C. Watson.
Diane Jean Wennerlin.
Teresa Ann Weeding.
Jonathan Frederick Westergreen.
Lori Marie Welly.
Dawn Marie Wheeler.
Glenn N. Winninger.
Mary Sue Wilkes.
Christopher William West.
Nancy Lynn Williamson.
Robbie B. Westmoreland.
Jennifer Marie Walter.
Donna Louise Wilkes.
Paul Wei Kwan Wong.
John E. Williams.
Rhonda K. Webina.
Alice Elizabeth Windsor.
Laura Elise Young.
Susan Mary Walters.
Todd Robert Zick.
Kimberly Ann Woodwick. Peter S. Yu. M. Christine Youngquist. Aaron James Zanell. Raymond E. Hernandez.
Let me say one thing. Is this graduation thing mellow or what? Before I get started, I just want to say I heard all your threats to keep it quick. And I want to make it to the all-night party before I die as much as you guys, so I'll make it quick. In Thomas Jefferson's declining years, he realized that his life was drawing to a close and that he had one final goal he wanted to accomplish. He wanted to build an institution of higher learning which would carry on his interests in academic pursuits and his beliefs in American democracy. Jefferson drew the plans, purchased the building site and materials, and set about to build the University of Virginia. By this time, Thomas Jefferson was not able to make the frequent trips from Monticello to the building site located in the valley beneath his home. So in true Jeffersonian ingenuity, he taught his foreman at the building site a series of commands from handheld flags. With this method, Jefferson directed the placement of each and every piece of stone, mortar, and lumber that went into the construction of a living memorial. Like Thomas Jefferson, our parents and teachers have attempted to build a structure which would be lasting and able to withstand the ravages of a sometimes unfriendly society. We have been molded and shaped by various forces, but yet we have retained our own individual characters, which have made us an even stronger structure. The strength of the Jeffersonian structure has been inherited by many Americans who have remodeled the building and in turn strengthened the building materials. One of America's children who inherited this Jeffersonian structure stated in his presidential inaugural address, "Let the world go forth from this time and place to friend and foe alike, that the torch has been passed to a new generation of Americans." Fellow Jefferson graduates, we are a new generation. And today, more than any other day in our lives, we stand on the edge of a new horizon. A horizon of unaccomplished hopes and unknown opportunities. We enter this new horizon with the foundation and the building materials needed. However, we as individuals must apply the sweat to finish this construction. Let's not just make a building. Let's go forth and construct a palace.